Endings are hard, and you can always learn something, even if you're a world-class player in the top 10, like Alireza Firouzja just became. Magnus Carlsen is maybe the best player in the world in the technical phase of the game, and he wins a marvelous bishop ending against Firouzja at the Norway Chess in Stavanger that just finished a few days back. So let's jump into it. It's very instructive. You will learn a lot about bishop endings and how to think in the ending. And we will also go over some endgame principles that you can apply in your own games. It's a very instructive game, and I recommend you check this video out. This is GM Talks, and remember to like and subscribe if you like the video. So let's go. Carlsen is white, and he starts with e4, which I think is his preferred first move. It's it's a little bit more aggressive than d4, leads to more force play, and we have a Spanish or Rai Lopez, and a6 is the most common move. And b5, bishop b3, bishop c5. I think this is known. It used to be without b5, it would be the Müller attack or something, but I think now it's just known as the new Archangel or Neo Archangel or something. And Black like this setup with the earlier they used to put the bishop on b7, but sometimes it doesn't belong on b7, so it makes sense to put the bishop and this active square c5. It's a rather appealing variation that where black can easily be a little bit better if white plays not actively enough. So it is an interesting system. Carlsen has played this a lot with black as well. A4 is of course the downside to playing b5. White simply attacks here due to this dynamics. There you have to take that seriously. Rook here, okay, out of the file, but that means that white got the a file for free. And d6, it's all normal moves. d4, bishop b6, and in this position, this move has gotten popular lately. White simply fixes the queen side. You can't take the pawn due to the pawn on e5 and some problems on f7 and so on. So you have to go. And you know, you could say that the pressure on the queen side is now gone. But this pawn here is stuck on a white square. This bishop here is at the moment biting on granite, but it will get out, of course. But white might get some more space here. And the thing is, black can never sort of get this square under control as easily with the a pawn, for instance, as he used to, because now the a pawn is stuck on a6. a3. Remember, you can't take on e4. We're just gonna show you due to this trick. So you have to be careful of that trick in a lot of lines in the Spanish. So a3, bishop b7. Black's idea is, of course, to put a lot of pressure on the center. We see that all his pieces are aiming at the center, and he might become, if the center disappears, might become very active, can often start some sort of a kingside attack. Bishop e3, all normal, and now black can take the pawn, but white will usually get it back, because there's no way you can sort of cannot play e4. You just go knight d5 or bishop d5 or something, and or rook e1. It's black should be careful here. So it's natural to castle, and this is what Alireza does, and they now transpose into an ending where white seems to be very active here. And but black is solid after bishop b5. If we can exchange the bishops, then there will be no problems for black. One thing we should notice with this constellation on the queen side is this pawn is the problem for black, and this square is a problem as well. If white can put a knight on this square, it would be very annoying for black because it's the pawn on a6 would be permanently weak. Also, we notice that these pawns here are on the same color as black's bishop. Okay, but I think black should be very, very close to equal here. And forcing the exchange of the knight, something like this doesn't seem right. It seems like it's more trouble than, and you're never gonna get your knight to c5 in this. So have to take, and so all white got here is these pawns are fixed on white squares, the same color as the bishop. And this, in general, is something you would like to avoid. You don't want your pawns on the same color as your bishop. And here we have the same colored bishops, and therefore it's more important. It doesn't mean it's lost or anything. It just means that it can be a little bit annoying. The thing is also that if you lose the a pawn, then white's a pawn will be very dangerous. So there are some features of the position that's a little bit unpleasant. Here he plays rook a d1. I think might be a little bit better to put the other rook on d1 and then follow up with f3 and have a rook and bishop, because white is more active, and I think he might get a little bit of something. Because after this move, black is very active. He's sort of almost home free with the development, and Carlsen therefore decides to go into a bishop ending. And all he got here is this problem. This is the only problem black got, but it is a problem, and it's not so easy to solve. It's sort of a staying problem. It's a permanent weakening of the position, because this bishop here will never attack any of white's pawns. So it's only a defending bishop. So even though the computer says it's almost 0-0 here, it's clear that it can only be white that's playing for a win. But it is, of course, not won. And black's king is already very active. White has to keep the bishop out of the king out of c5. And one very important thing in these kind of endings are active kings. This is something we will see in a little while, that it's really important to have an active king. White goes bishop d5, g4. And white is getting ready to get some space on the king side. He would like to have more pawns on white, and hopefully he will get black into some sort of a zugzwang. That you have to move and you don't want to, because the bishop will have to have duties on both sides of the board defending, and this is something black definitely does not want. So here he goes h6. He might have gone f6 instead. That might have been better, actually. But white will probably still go g5, and white is playing hard for a win, which was maybe a little bit surprising, that because it looks very drawish. And here we see that white has the potential to make an outside pass pawn here, but we also see that this square down here, on all these things, maybe not so important right now, but they might be, that this square is on the opposite color of the bishop. That means that the white is stuck with the pawn and the bishop versus black's king. He cannot win. Black will put his king on h8 and it will be a draw. So at the moment, if black could get rid of all his pawns and the bishop for these pawns, it would be a draw. Okay? c5, and so reducing material makes a lot of sense, but the thing is, with the pawns on the black squares on the king side, it's not so easy to get rid of these pawns. It will have to be the king that does the job, and white will of course not allow the king to be that active. Here comes white king. But Black's king is also active, and Firouzja, who's a very talented and strong player, who just got into the top 10, is of course up to the task of knowing this, that you will have to get your king active. H4. So Black is getting ready for White is getting ready for H5 and H6. Kind of interesting, and he's combining attacking on the king side with the threat of penetrating with the king on the queen side. So Black has got a lot of defensive duties here, even though it looks like, if you ask the computer, it says it's just totally equal. It's not so easy for Black. He has to play precisely, and he doesn't manage to do that. We'll see the crucial point of the game in just a little while. G6. And this was not Black's plan, because now we see that all the pawns are on the same color as the bishop. So this is a bit annoying, meaning that this bishop is purely defensive, and it might, but okay, Black will be able to get at least one pawn away on the king side. Bishop d4, and here we already see that there is a problem here. This pawn is the weakness, and the thing is, if Black loses the a pawn, then the b pawn will be weak, and White's a pawn will be strong. So the b pawn will be weak, White's a pawn will be strong. So it's really a double whammy. It's really annoying. So you can't allow the bishop go here, and here comes a little nice tactics from Magnus. H5. And we see that due to the sort of the blockade on the Black square, Black cannot do this because White's bishop pawn will queen. Oops, we'll do this like this. So, but what now? He's losing a pawn, right? So Black is winning the pawn on g5, and here I would probably be afraid, but Carlsen didn't have to go into this. He could just have moved the bishop. So he foresaw that this was probably still quite promising for White, even though losing a pawn is not nice, and you only have 2 pawns left, and one of them you can't mate with the bishop, so you have to make one of them into a queen. Bishop c8. There's of course this threat here. The thing is, if this pawn goes, it will be very difficult for Black's bishop to both guard this pawn and avoid the a pawn from just queening. So going back, but what now? This pawn is gone, right? And here we see White's plan is king d4 and king takes d5, and here Black probably saw that, okay, White is coming somewhere here, but I will go here, and this pawn will be pretty dangerous, so maybe I can even win. And here is he probably surprised because White does the shoulder budge. He gets in front of the king, so the king can't do anything here. See that it blocks the Black king from going anywhere. And of course, king here, then White will go king here, and it will be a problem. And White will always get a tempo on the bishop somewhere. So f5 looks natural, and so the king goes forward, and f4 is also natural, and White goes back, which probably surprised Firouzja. And he might here have tried king f4, but the computer says it's losing because White will just go bishop c6, king c7, and he will win the b pawn and sacrifice. He'll get both pawns and win. So f4 is correct. King e5. So this is the crucial point of the game. This is the crucial point. White sacrificed a pawn. He has gotten the Black bishop to be passive on c8. Black's king here is in Zugzwang. It's about to lose the pawn. So what to do here? And the thing is, Firouzja misses what's going on here. There are two ways to draw this for Black if he plays correctly. Firouzja tries to get the opposition, but he due to this bishop's limited range, he runs into a zugzwang and is outmaneuvered and loses the game. So instead, he had to find an active solution to the problems and accept that this pawn here will be lost. So one way to play this is to go here, looks very strange, and here, and some like this, already threatening to queen. Here, bishop has to go back to guard, but we also see that this is a serious threat now. So black has to do something. Maybe king here, getting ready, and here comes an important point. King here, attacking the bishop, defending the pawn, and at the same time blocking the a pawn, threatening queen. And this was a very long line from the computer, but it's very instructive. And bishop c8, and this looks like it's lost, but it's not, because the problem for black, white, is that this bishop has to keep an eye here. So black will keep on attacking it. So we can see here that after this, they will have a draw, because here black will definitely not play f2. He'll play bishop g4, something like this, with a perpetual attack on the bishop. White cannot get out of this, and so it's a draw. This was one very instructive defensive method, a perpetual attack on the bishop that has to guard the f1 square. Another way that's probably easier to understand is something like bishop a3, bishop b7, here bishop a6, f3, f2, and after something like this, we will queen immediately. Both will get a queen, and it will be a draw, according to the computer. So this was the point here, that in this position, black had to give up the defense of the a pawn and trying to make the f pawn into a serious factor. Not easy at all. Instead, Firouzja did something that's very human to do. He played king here, just marking time, hoping for king there and back and so on. But what he didn't think about here was that after something like here, black is already in zugzwang. He has to give way with the king, because the bishop is out of squares. If it had one more square, it would be no problem at all. White will just have to accept that the king will body check. And here, and of course, you're trying to go here, if possible. So it's stopped, and now we can take, because there's the king got, and this was actually a very important moment, avoiding any kind of getting after this here. White cannot stop this. So I think anyway, king e4. Maybe there's more way to win. But this was, of course, the easiest way, because here this pawn takes here and it takes here, so the black king has to stay inside, and here, of course, it's dawned on white that you can't move the king back, so something like this, and white is of course, and Magnus Carlsen is deadly in these things. He will not make a mistake. He's not a superhuman, but he will. If, for instance, we see here, if you defend like this, white will just go like this, and it's already zugzwang. The king will get more longer into the position. So, and here it's already. And we are ready for the final, taking away the square, and it's all over. The a pawn is queening, or it's a lost pawn ending. So very instructive moment here, where black had to go for his pawn up, passed pawn has some problems on the queen side. The problem is, of course, that it's structural, that he will lose 2 pawns unless he plays it very precisely. But here he chooses wrongly. He didn't. I'm not sure. Maybe he was under pressure with the time that he realized that he could not uphold the opposition with the kings due to Zugzwang. It's kind of a human mistake because the computer sees it very easily that that king d6 just loses on the spot. But it's something that you would probably play without thinking in a blitz game. Just saying, okay, I got the king check, checked. Here the shoulder butch works this way, so the king is sort of preventing white king from penetrating. The problem is the bishop can move, and black cannot move his bishop too far away because then comes bishop b7, so he can't move the bishop at all, getting into Zugzwang immediately. This was a great game from Carlsen, and it was after he lost to Kayakin and then won 4 in a row. And for Firouzja, this was also sort of good because he also won 4 in a row. And in the next video, we will have a look at a Firouzja game. This was GM Talks. Thank you for watching.